Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. If you have roll call there, Trina.
Mayor Parker?
Here.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mr. Christie? Here. Mr. O'Leary?
Here.
Mr. Leonard?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Zutnick?
Here.
Mr. Travelini?
Here.
And Ms. Gutschall.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Landuse Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk and sent to the Burnsville News, Burnsville, the Courier News, Somerville, and to all subscribers and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Landuse, New Jersey, on January 9, 2017.
Everyone stand, please, for the flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the benefit of our board tonight, we have Mike Sullivan here with us tonight. Welcome.
Good evening.
And
Welcome.
we have some minutes that we need to approve. So we have the minutes from May 4th. If you've had a chance to look at those, we could use a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And you
Abstain?
can recuse us from the first June meeting.
Okay. Okay, and the June minutes, we need an approval there.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We have two
And an
abstaining.
abstention for me as well.
Yes, abstain for Jeff and the mayor and Larry.
Yep.
Okay, if there's anyone here that'd like to have a public statement for something that's not on the agenda, we could have this time. Seeing no one, we will continue. I guess we're going to talk about the ordinance tonight. Who's going to be our rep here? Frank? Frank, are you going to talk about our ordinance?
I think I may have to.
Yeah?
This is something we've talked about
Before?
quite a number of times before.
Yes.
I think we're down to correcting a couple of minor glitches that the last version of the ordinance had.
You want to point those out to us, I hope.
Larry, can you do that faster than me?
Sure. There was a reference to,
I'm trying to think, it was on
The SF,
the SFCRD, which should have been,
just SFC.
SFC.
And that was corrected. That's
and that was corrected. So, and the
typographical stuff. It was nothing substantive.
SFCRD would have made it applicable to Revere up top.
Right.
But SF, and was meant to apply to SFC, the Clucas Brook development. And so with the addition of RD, those two letters, it changed which zone was applied, that was identified and fixed. And that was it.
So what the governing body is now looking for you to make your comment on this ordinance, which again is the find that it's not inconsistent with the master plan.
Okay. And we need a roll call on that?
We need a first and second.
Well, I'm sorry, yes, we need a motion, please, on that.
What's the motion for?
To approve this ordinance.
Oh, I had a question.
Oh,
How
yes,
does it
yes.
impact the VN2 zone?
Well, we kind of went through that a little bit.
Is it in there just yet, or is it VN2 also there?
It should be in there too.
Some of those yard adjustments that were made where we took off 5 feet per side yard or rear
It's
yard.
on the second to last page, George.
Be in section 7?
Section 7.
7.
VN2. Got it, thank you. I understand.
Section 7.
Okay, thank you.
The mics are on, they can hear you.
Oh, well, all right, I have a general question for. there was
Well,
no
if you
change to the
do,
map?
absolutely.
There was no change to the map or the expansion of any of the zones one way or another? All that remained intact, just the definitions we changed.
Some bulk standard changes. Essentially, the crux of the ordinance, which is actually generated from the Land Use Board from 2016. There was a subcommittee that was convened in 2016 to look at some of the bulk standards as applied across the town and to see if there was a way to relax some of those bulk standard as impositions on the properties, primarily on setbacks and lot coverage. With also FAR, and we changed definition of FAR.
It was really, because it was mostly residential, it was mostly setbacks and coverage, like you
Right.
said. And it was really giving a little bit of relief in response to the zoning board's findings that we were repeatedly getting requests for certain types of relief, so. It
Also
was
a little relief to the sign ordinance, which has always been,
Yeah.
the
Right.
business community is.
allowed a little more area
A
for
little
sign.
tweak on that.
Yeah, again, my question was only with respect to the map change at all, but
Okay,
So,
is there any?
and just for, as history, so as Frank said, we've actually looked at this ordinance now 3 times, maybe 4 times. First one, we referred it from this board to the Township Committee, and then it came back to this board for consistency with master plan. We approved it once, then subsequently we realized there was a typo when they were sent it back. So I'm not sure if that's 3 or 4 times we're now looking at it. Since we last looked at it, the only change really was fixing those typos. So all the other bulk standard requirements that were in the earlier versions still stay.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Oh, you have a question? Yes, certainly. Please come up to the mic.
Microphone?
Name and address, please.
So just a question, so I'm
Name and address, please.
Shell Road in Bedminster Township. So does this make setbacks and whatever else more lenient? Is that, how much?
Depends on the-
No more than 5 feet on a 35 or 40-foot setback.
Okay. And a signage increase?
About a 15% increase, I think.
15%.
Total square footage.
Total area.
It went from 8 square feet to 12 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
On sign in the BN2 zones.
Okay, thank you.
I'll acknowledge that Cheryl is a former mayor of Bedminster Township and member of this board, and she doesn't brag about it, but
pictures of them.
yeah, we really should, don't you think?
Sorry, it must have been before my Bedminster time, but that I didn't recognize you. Is there anyone else who have any questions? Okay, seeing none.
So your recommendation, your action will be to find that these proposed revisions are not inconsistent with Bedminster's master plan. And in fact, they're not inconsistent because these are residential zones that are still residential zones. The
Right.
extent of the fine tuning that we're doing, I don't want to say it's de minimis, but it's not changing any of the character or any of the intent of any of those provisions.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, now we have a motion, please.
Motion to approve?
Now a roll call?
Mayor Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Christie? Aye. Mr. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. D?
Aye.
Mr. Sutton?
Aye.
Mr. Salazine?
Aye.
And Ms. Gutschall?
Aye. Thank you, Frank, for the work you did on this and the committee.
Does this
Thank
go
you.
back to the committee?
This
Town-
going
Just go back.
back for the public hearing.
Yes?
So there's one more,
Yes?
one more shot at it.
Yes.
Like a boomerang.
On Monday?
Yeah.
On Monday. So
Carve it.
this coming Monday, public hearing on adoption of this ordinance.
Okay.
Not this Monday.
19.
The 19th.
Okay.
Thank you, Trina.
Okay, good. All right, we can move along. Do we have any planning board comments?
Yes, I'll just jump in here and say, just to kind of piggyback on this and the work that we've been doing over the past couple of years. I don't know that we've discussed it here, but I think over the past 2 or 3 weeks, we've got news from Mallinckrodt It was out on 206 in the old Dendrite
Yep.
building. They were supposed to have half occupancy by the end of the first quarter of this year. That has slowed down, but for good reasons, because they're not going to take 50% of the building, they're taking 100% of the building.
Wonderful,
So
wonderful.
our overall goal is to try to encourage our commercial sector to run on all cylinders, and I think that's a huge victory. And it's not just by circumstance. They did jump in about a year ago and say they were interested in the building. Once we heard about it, we conducted a meeting. Committeeman Jacobs, myself, Ms. Sullivan, DPW, police chief, our code enforcement, and sat them around a table and said, we're happy you're in town. What can we do to help you? Not change our ordinances, but what can we do to make sure that your transition goes smoothly? And I think they were thrilled that the town showed interest,
Absolutely.
as opposed to trying to figure out how to slow them down and become an obstacle. So I'm hoping that that's paid dividends. It's not going to change the character of our town, other than it's going to change the balance of rateables more towards the business side than the residential side. And we hope that that pays dividends over the years for our residential taxpayers.
It's wonderful.
So it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And not doing a small part for this board and the way we've been going over the past couple of years. So I thank you for continuing to go in that direction.
Good. Also, they have reached out to the college, Raritan Valley, and said they would like to be a good neighbor to college.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, I'm on that board, so I am very happy to hear that they're already trying to be a good neighbor. So, they will be. I think it could be very, very good for us. So. Okay.
Wait, there's more.
There's more? More news?
So that was just the mayor. So there are two things I just want to report on. Paul's not here. Paul did advise me that he's received and processed at least one of the exemption applications. So remember, this was the MIMS applications that normally would have triggered an applicant for the board for a minor project. And Paul said he's already processed one, and that he has additional on the way. So this follows up on the mayor's comment about the actions that this board has taken and recommendations you have made, or we all have made, back to the township committee to make sure that what we can do to facilitate folks, both residential and non-residential folks, making improvements to their facilities. And Paul said that other than the one he's processed, he's aware that several others are coming down the pike, and I was thinking he might be here so he could perhaps elaborate a little bit further.
Yeah.
Also, and we've talked about, we've talked about this for a while now, that we have been, the township committee, we've been working with Somerset County Planning through a grant that Somerset County Planning obtained from North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, NJTPA, where in the past, they've identified some terms priority growth investment areas across Somerset County, and they brought in planning expertise to look at ways that they can incentivize growth in these areas. There's been one site that was identified in Bedminster, and that was the AT&T campus. And discussions with Walter Lane from Somerset County, Steve and I asked, hey, it's great to study the AT&T campus, but we'd also like to see, maybe you could look at planning issues moving from the AT&T campus and bringing it out to the 202-206 corridor, which they did agree to do, and working with, I guess it was Parsons Perhoff, serving as the planner expert hired by the county to work with the county in preparing these plans. They did finalize a plan. They showed it to Steve and I. We gave some comments, and the entire Phase 3 study for Somerset County, which involves 17 priority growth investment areas, will be presented next week, Thursday, June 15th, at the Somerset County Administration Building, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, so it would be Thursday evening, and they will walk through the recommendations that they have for all those 17 areas that they've studied, including the AT&T campus and out to the 202-206 corridor. So it is a public meeting, and anyone can go. Certainly, I plan on going, and it's in...
If there's some kind of report or something that they make, maybe
There
we can,
will be a
we'll,
report.
you know, we could have that. That would be
We will
good.
certainly get a copy, but if anyone from the planning board or anyone from the public wants to attend, once again, it's Thursday, June 15th, 6 to 8 at the County Administration Building, 20 Grove Street in Somerville. And Trina, if I give this to you, can you distribute this to the planning board members? Sure. And that's it.
Good. Well,
Thank you.
good progress. That's wonderful. Good. Okay.
Were there any additional preliminary site plan approvals on the AT&T site that they may have filed or gotten approved in anticipation of some further development there, or no?
No, not that I'm aware of.
300,000 square feet never got built, right?
I think that's right. That was a while ago.
There's something that was,
And that preliminary approval has lapsed, or do they keep renewing it?
I don't recall that they've come back to renew it, but they clearly had the, oh, you know what, it came through a settlement agreement. So that complicate the question of whether it's lapsed or not.
Okay.
Status.
Okay, I think we are ready for our hearing. Verizon Wireless, and gentlemen, you may be excused. We are now the zoning board.
Thank you.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you. No meeting in
Enjoy the
first
beginning of summer.
week of
If
July,
it ever
no
shows
meeting.
up.
Yes.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Frank Ferraro with the firm of Ferraro and Stamos here on behalf of the applicant, New York SMSA Limited Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless. In this application, Verizon Wireless is seeking use variance relief, a height variance, and site plan approval to install what's called an outdoor distributed antenna system node at the property, which is rather unique. This is we're proposing it within the county, the Route 620 county right-of-way, commonly known as Burnt Mill Road. We'll have an aerial to show exactly where we're proposing it, but it's near the I-78 overpass. Currently, there's an existing utility pole on the east side of Burnt Mills Road. What Verizon is seeking to do is to install one canister antenna on top of that utility pole and to attach some equipment to the lower portions of the pole. Verizon Wireless is currently having capacity issues in this area of the township, which it hopes to address through this new type of smaller DAS node technology. We do have 3 witnesses for you tonight. We have our professional engineer to review the site improvements. We have our radio frequency engineer to go over the need for the node, as well as the planner to review the criteria for the relief we were requesting. Madam Chair, unless there's any initial questions from the board or its professionals, we would call our first witness.
I don't think so. I think you go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. We call Pete McCabe, who's our professional engineer, testify regarding the site plan.
Would you raise your hand? You swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address for the record,
P.
please.
McCabe, 600 Parsippany Road, with Dewberry.com, Dewberry Engineers. Professional engineer licensed in the state of New Jersey for a number of years and have testified before. No, McCabe, MCC, ABE.
And as you indicated, you've testified before land use boards in the state of New Jersey previously,
I have
on approximately how many occasions? Many.
more than 100.
Okay. And you've been accepted by those land use boards as an expert in professional engineering?
I have.
Madam Chair, are there any objections to accepting Mr. Cave?
No, I don't believe so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McCabe, the site plans that you're about to review with the board have a last revision date of 10/28/16, correct?
Correct.
And these plans were either prepared by you or under your supervision, is that correct?
Yes.
And before we go over those, we just want to mark one exhibit. I'm going to mark this as A1.
We like the date on those two?
I'm
Date two is today's date, Trina, we usually put on. Yeah.
And that's entitled an aerial photo of site vicinity photo location map.
So this is an aerial of the proposed antenna location, is that correct?
Yes.
This is contained in the board's packet in the photo simulations, but we just wanted to introduce this now. The picture is the same as what you have in your packet.
Just a colored version.
Board mounted.
Okay.
So we felt this was the best way to show where we're proposing this.
Right.
So referring to A1, please orient us to where the installation is proposed.
Sure. As Mr. Ferrero mentioned, it's an existing pole that's located on Burton Mills Road, just where it crosses over 78, and it's on the north.
I think if we could move that over here, I don't think the audience can see.
Move it more towards Frank.
Yeah, over that way. Maybe in this corner, actually, up here, maybe. We can all get to see it.
That way it's not blocking anybody.
Right.
I'm going to sit down so I'm not in the way.
Is that better, or you can't? Maybe if you guys move over this way, I think maybe you'll be able to see it.
It's also better than video cameras here.
We try.
You can face it more towards the audience. We have a few copies, I think, up here that we can see. If those in our packet.
Yeah.
You got some copies down there?
Yeah.
So a lot of the story Frank already went over, but it is an utility pole that's located on the north side of Route 78 where Burnt Mills Road crosses 78, and it's on the east side of Burnt Mills Road, and it's 38 and a half feet tall. And what Verizon is proposing to do is to mount a 24-inch by 15-inch diameter, just a can basically, excuse me, at the top of on top of that existing pole, and then to mount some radio equipment 55 inches by 20 inches wide. So the cabinet's a little bit wider than the pole, but that's mounted 12 feet of grade, so it's out of the way of any motorist or anything like that. And then it's there's a disconnect that's 8 feet above grade, which isn't any wider than the pole, and then there's a electric meter that's on the pole.
And, could you please refer to those improvements using the site plan?
Sure.
And just refer to what sheet number.
Are there any questions about where this is located? Is that clear for everybody?
Nope. I think we all understand.
Just one question. Is that
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that township land? Who owns that land?
It's the county, yeah.
County, in the county right away?
Route 620, it's near Lot 1, Block 6201, but it is within the right-of-way.
So, just by way of background, Verizon is proposing these nodes in certain locations throughout the county, and not just Somerset County, all the counties in New Jersey. So they have a master agreement with the county of Somerset to utilize their right-of-ways. It's just we have to present each location to them and then that location gets, if it's approved, it gets added to the master agreement as an approved location.
So have you gone to Somerset County for this
Yes.
application and has been approved by the county for this particular pole?
Correct. We've obtained the necessary consent from the county, and we've also obtained the land use approval from the county planning board. So all the county approvals, the county has approved this installation.
Thank you.
Have you presented that to our board?
Yes,
Yes, we have that in,
it
oh,
was
okay.
submitted after the initial application, but on February 6th, we submitted a copy of the amendment to the right-of-way and attachment agreement between Verizon Wireless and the County of Somerset. And then in the updated application package, we included a copy of the county planning board. I believe it was an approval or an exemption. It was one of the
Okay, but you've given that paperwork to our, okay, we have it on record. Okay, thank you.
So
And now we're going to refer to the plans that the board has. Counselor, do I need to mark these plans?
I don't know what to start me to do here. There's no
they
change
haven't been changed,
submission.
they haven't been changed at all.
We don't think
No,
we need to-
not if they haven't been changed.
I'll just
If it's
refer
the
to
same what
sheet-
we have.
Yeah, and I'll refer to the sheet that is in your packet.
Okay, that's
that
fine.
that I have up here, and that's sheet Z4 of the plan set. And it's dated, as was mentioned, this set of drawings, the original date is 10/28 of 2016. So what this sheet is, it demonstrates what I was discussing as far as what the improvements that are proposed. Installation of the antenna at the top of the existing utility pole, which again is it's 24 inches high, 15 inches in diameter. It's gray in color, and it adds a little less than 3 feet total to the height of what the pole is. And you'll see the planner has the photo sims that she'll be presenting to show the existing condition and the proposed condition. And then you'll see on the north side of the pole, this over here to the left of the plan is the pole in plan view, and it shows the right-of-way to the east here, and it shows the curb line, and then the existing pole, and then the on the north side is where those pieces of equipment are getting mounted up the pole. On the right-hand side is the elevation view, indicating the heights that I mentioned for, first, the meter is down low, then there's a disconnect switch, and then there's the radio equipment, which is, the bottom of it is at 12 foot above grade. And there's a connection that's already in place, the pole cross that'll provide for the connection to the equipment and the power.
And in this application, the applicant is requesting a height variance, correct?
Yes.
And that's because the existing pole is already in excess of what's permitted in the R10 zone.
Yes.
And with the new antenna installed, the antenna will be at a maximum height of 41 feet 3 inches above grade,
Correct.
and that's 2 feet 9 inches above what the existing pole is now, correct?
Yes. 38 foot 6 inches is the existing pole.
And with respect to this installation, are there any permanent employees required at the site to man it?
No.
Will this site generate any measurable level of traffic to this location?
No. An occasional maintenance person similar to any other telecommunications equipment.
And in those rare instances where the site had to be visited, where would that technician park or access the site?
There's the turnout just north of here on Burnt Mills Road that would allow somebody to pull out.
You know, what type of utilities are required for this installation?
Just the power that's on the pole right across the street.
And fiber service as well?
Yes. But no water or anything like that.
No improvements
On
the
ground.
ground, is that correct?
Yes.
And so there'll be obviously no additional impervious coverage?
Correct.
No impact on drainage?
Right.
Any disturbance?
No.
In your opinion, do you believe that this installation poses any kind of additional hazard to the traveling public?
No.
And do you believe that the pole can accommodate the additional improvements that we're proposing?
Yes, and we've analyzed it for this installation and have a report and calculations that we've provided to your engineer.
I'm just going to mark this structural report as A2. The board does not have this report, and Mr. Cade, this is a copy of the report dated November 15, 2016, is that correct?
Yes,
A copy of this was forwarded to the board's engineer.
electronically this week.
Which report was that?
This is the structural report
Oh, for,
for
okay.
the utility pole.
In response to his report.
And who prepared that report?
This is prepared by two very engineers, John Yu, who's a project manager at your firm, is that correct?
Yes. Professional engineers licensed in the state of New Jersey as well.
Okay.
And
Any,
as indicated in this report, the total stress is only 21.8% of the allowable limit
Yes.
of the pole. So that was provided to the engineer for his review.
okay, thank you. Any,
With respect to this pole, just the last question, if approved, would this pole cause any noise?
No.
And will it result in any dust, vibration, glare, smoke, or other nuisance?
No.
And do you believe that the site can accommodate this additional use?
Yes.
Madam Chair, there's not a lot being proposed.
I understand. Any questions from the board? Go ahead, George.
Can you talk about, because I have no clue, about the relationship between the cell tower further down, 78, and this, and if they work together, or what they do?
Our next witness is going to be the radio frequency engineer, and he's going to be able to address those type of questions as to how this installation kind of the interplay between this and the existing on-air sites in the area. So if we can answer that question with the next witness.
Sure.
I have some questions.
Yes?
As per some of the recommendations, our board engineer, after this installation, if it's going to be done, will there ever be a need to increase the utilization here by adding additional boxes, additional, equipment on that pole or whatever? Because I have seen where poles go up, and then Verizon might do the pole, but then Sprint comes, and other people come and keep adding onto those poles.
This is really a single user type pole. We don't anticipate additional equipment. There's really no room to put another antenna on the pole, to be honest, but once again, our radio frequency engineer has been designing these type of outdoor DAS systems for Verizon for a while now. I think his expertise and his experience with these facilities, that he can testify and answer that question.
I think in that case, they would just put up a new pole, because it's a right-of-way. So there's a potential for a lot of poles and a lot of boxes.
Right, that's what I'm trying.
Well, I think we'll ask the expert when he comes. Anyone else on the board?
The power utility to this pole is only to support this function, or is it a catenary for power along that route into some of the residences up and down the road?
I believe the power is only to support this installation.
Other board? Frank, do you have any questions?
Paul asked if I would fill in for him, and I think
Okay.
some of the issues that Paul had in his report
Uh-huh.
have already been covered by the engineer's testimony in terms of
Right.
any possible hazard to the traveling public.
Mhm.
I guess my only question would be, the drawing makes it pretty clear that from that 12 feet up in the air, there are some projections off the side of the pole to accommodate the wires and things like that. What happens at the ground surface? Does the pole have anything attached to it right at the ground, at grade, that changes the circumference of it in any way?
That's a good question.
Meter, I assume.
Yeah, just a grounding wire, but it's not like there's power coming from a transformer somewhere else up the pole.
Mhm.
It's all aerial and down.
And down?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, Frank, or
That was it.
everything else has been covered?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
One thing, if I may.
Yes.
While we're on Paul's letter, there is one item in the letter I wanted to ask for relief from. I know it's probably typical that the board require that the landlord comment 5 indicates the title sheet should be signed by the landlord representative, which, if that's Verizon, that's fine. If we have to get it signed by the county, it becomes a major delay in the fact that I guess we'd have to get the freeholders to act on it. It has to be done by resolution. It becomes a very involved process to get the plan signed.
You had the county's consent to the filing of the application, right?
Correct. But
Yeah.
that took a while to get.
Yeah, no, but the fact that they've consented, I'm not the attorney, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, I think the fact that you have the consent, you have the approval, would suffice to satisfy that condition. That's in my estimation.
But that's what we're looking for, just procedure. To have them sign off on the plan could take a couple of months to just.
Well, yeah, I don't think since you already have an approval, I can't imagine that it would be.
Seems redundant.
Yeah, I would think it does. I think the freeholders are available to do that, so I don't think that would be a problem. I think that would, and if they're the owner or the land, I mean, I think they need to do it.
I just have a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
With regard to Mr. Ferriero's engineering report, item number 1 is just informational, but the other remaining items, items 2, with respect to the condition that's recommended there, I guess item 3 was already addressed in the structural report, but 4, 6 would be conditions of approval, and I assume the applicant has no objection to those.
No. Thank you.
Okay. All right, the public, I'll open up to them. Is there any questions? Yes, please, come just. Mhm.
One quick question. Cheryl Roden,
Can you spell your last name?
Rowden.
Thank you.
Is this 5G or is this 4G?
That'll be our next witness, but 4G.
Okay, thank you.
More G's is better.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing no one, we will have your next witness.
Thank you. Again, witness is Glenn Pearson, our radio frequency engineer.
Mhm.
Dre Drain, you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes, Glenn,
State your name first and spell your last name
Glenn Pearson, Pierson,
and your address.
Biz address 63 Beaverbrook Road, Lincoln Park, New Jersey.
I have it memorized by now.
Yes, sorry. 3 years experience now. I've been accepted as a witness from this front of this board several times, and including the planning board. I'm a principal on PureCon Solutions and the radio frequency engineer. Do we want details?
I think that's satisfied. Are you satisfied?
You've been accepted in a number of land boards across the state in this capacity.
Oh, yes, hundreds, and as I said, including this one.
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, Verizon Wireless is an FCC licensed provider of telecommunications services, is that correct?
Yes, they have licenses in 4 frequency bands from the FCC.
And there were a number of radio frequency related submissions to the board prior to this hearing. One was an FCC emissions compliance report dated 4/28/17, correct?
Is that the latest one?
I believe that.
Yes.
There was also a radio frequency report which contained an inventory of existing sites that was dated October 16, 2016. Is that correct?
I have October 20th on mine, but
Oh, I'm sorry. October 20th, 2016.
yes.
And you have done a radio frequency analysis of the need for this new node location, is that correct?
Yes.
Could you please share that analysis with the board, and we'll mark any exhibits you might have.
Mr. Barr, you want to mark those items, the FCC emissions report and the RF report, or they were submitted as part of the application?
That's correct.
Okay, we'll just identify them as such.
Okay.
I'm actually thinking that would be better here.
Okay.
You're the engineer.
then I can point to things and A1, right?
A2.
A3.
3.
A3 is being marked Verizon Wireless Network Design, Interstate 78 in Bedminster, New Jersey, prepared by me on April 24th of this year. What A3, I just want to give a little overview of what the network looks like. So I pulled an aerial photo out of Google Earth, and what we have is going north-south on the right side is I-287, and then going east-west is I-78. Here, a little off the map to the north. There's several dots, triangles that are on here. Starting in the upper right-hand corner, it's labeled Bedminster 2. That's the tree pole at the 206, 202 exit. Verizon has a facility on there. There's a red dot as we go clockwise around. There's a smaller, just a red circle labeled Bedminster Hills SC. And that is a what we call small cell on top of the first building. It says it's the PPAC Gladstone Bank, and it says available, et cetera. It's just in the common. It's the brown building. There are antennas on the side by some other carrier on the facade of the building, on like 3 sides. There is a dark brown painted panel on the roof, and then there's cylinder antenna, which is Verizon's. That's the only one that's Verizon's. The gray cylinder antenna, which is about in the center of the roof that you can see if you're looking from the PC Bank side over. There is going clockwise around further, very close to 287, 1 Washington Valley Road, the old, well, it continues to be the Verizon office. There's a site on the roof of that. That's been there since I used to work there in the 90s. It's only a 3-story building, or thereabouts. So it's relatively short site. And then we have one site on the left side, and that's a lattice tower that's we labeled Lamington. It's been there since the early to mid-90s probably, went up. It's on DOT property, and it's right at one of the tee boxes on Trump's golf course over there. And I remember when Trump said, "Oh, I don't like that lattice tower there. You need to make it a tree pole." And all the carriers said, "Yeah, good luck with that." Maybe he's president, maybe we can get that done now. What we have is, if you're traveling west on 78, you actually don't see that lattice tower for a ways because there's a little hill just east of it. So if you're traveling west, you see trees, and then all of a sudden you get close to the hill, and then you'll see the tower. That is preventing that from getting a super strong signal coming down to 78. But it does, what covers Route 78 is the Lamington site and the Bedminster site. And those are the ones that hand off through here. And as we know, Route 78, Route 287 backs up on a daily basis. And that is causing a traffic issue with those 2 sites. And in the report, I don't know if you want this marked, because these pages out of the report that I printed, but maybe you do, because I had to do I did have a little X out of a couple of mistakes.
So why don't we mark that as A4?
Okay.
And just identify the record?
We'll do A4. You want A4 and A5, the 2 pages?
Yes.
Okay. A4 A4 is page 2 of the October 20th, 2016 report from Stephanie Cole. And A5 is page 3 of that same report dated October 20th, 2016. Just want to point out one item on page 3, which is A5. The title on the top of that page is Figure 2, Bedminster 2, 7 megahertz, et cetera, et cetera. It's not Bedminster 2, it's Bedminster site. I can prove that, I have an exhibit if you like, but it's based upon, when you go down to the bottom, where the chart is, on top of the chart it says E-Node B 8792-2. Well, 729-2 is the Bedminster site, which is on the rooftop, not the Bedminster 2 site, which is the tree pole. So she just put the two in your bags. And then also, Fig 2A is the same thing. So I X'd out, there's a couple, 3 locations where it actually references Bedminster 2 instead of Bedminster. That's my only change in this exhibit from what's in the report. What this report demonstrates, if we go to A4, page 2, there is a chart at the bottom of the page. That is a chart of data volume. FDV is forward data volume. How many megabits in an hour can this process? Actually, megabytes. So we have megabytes on thousands of megabytes on the y-axis, and we have dates going across the bottom. And there is a horizontal red line. That's the maximum capacity of data that site can handle and provide the throughput that Verizon guarantees of the 4 to 5 megabits per second download. The blue line, each change in the curve on that is a day. And that's busy hour for that day, for that time period, which is approximately October 1st to, it was done on October 20th, so it's probably going to go to August or September. So we can only pull the month prior when the report's done. And the blue line of usage is passing over the capacity line, which means now users have to wait longer. The throughput is slow. It's not to get to the speeds that we're guaranteeing. And also, I'm not sure you're familiar with voice over IP, but your cell phone calls aren't necessarily going over a regular dedicated channel sometimes. Sometimes it's created the data, put into a packet, and sent over to the data system. So just like if you have a cable modem at home and you get a phone from the cable company, you don't have a copper wire and a dedicated line anymore. They're just transfers that to data, and they run it over their cable network as data. So that's the same thing. Or if you do Skyping on your Apple, etc., then that's all voice over IP on the voice side. Sutter does voice over LTE, which is still voice over the data system. Packetizes your voice, throw it onto the data system. So when these slowdowns occur, if a voice call going on or a 911 call, the 911 is tested through the entire state to work on the LTE, then you may start losing syllables and words, etc. So that's kind of what a person would experience when you start having these problems. An overload for the system. The chart above it with all the red bars, that we call as a histogram. That tells you how many users are on the 700 megahertz channel. I'll find out, I'll take that in a minute, based on a distance from a site. So Verizon has 2 main channels that is running an LTE 4G data over. 700 megahertz, which is a lower frequency. It travels and talks as far as your standard voice cellular regular calls. That's 850 megahertz. They have a 700 megahertz license. The 850 license, which is a cellular, has been around since 1984. And then they have 2 higher frequency licenses, 1900 and 2100. So they have data at 700, your voice at the 850, and then data at the higher frequency. High frequencies don't go as far. And so their coverage is a little smaller. So what happens on this chart is there's not too many users on this site at a quarter of a mile, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, 1 mile is starting to ramp up. Because this chart is only the lower frequency, 700 megahertz frequency, because the high frequencies handle this. They can cover that first mile without a problem. And then those signals start getting too low in strength because they don't go as far. Then everything has to be handled by the 700 megahertz. And then you peak out at 1.75 miles, you've got a large peak of users.
And this is from the Lamington site, right?
That's all from the Landington site. So if we go back to here, and if I get lucky with some scaling, we've got scale on the bottom of A3, which is, with the span of my finger to thumb, is a mile. So 1 mile, mile and 3/4 is right out the word burnt in my my label for burnt milk. So that's where the peak of the traffic is, in this zone, just west of the proposed node. That's it. For the Bedminster site on the east end,
That's shown on A5 Bedminster.
which is on A5, we have, again, 700 megahertz data chart. The actual usage is exceeding the capacity line, so it's the same issue. And the usage peaks out in half a mile and then drops off before a mile. You can't, it's a smaller site. It can only handle that about 3/4, maybe 0.9 miles, because it gets caught in the trees and et cetera, because it isn't very tall. It's not a 150-foot pole, it's a 3 or 4 story building. So it covers, the cover radius is significantly less than the 150 foot. 150? Let's start at 125 at the lattice tower. So if we look at about a mile from the Bedminster site, right after Daston. So we know that Lamington covers just before, and Bedminster covers up to the Daston. And so we've kind of pinpointed where all the backup and all the uses are happening, right around Burnt Mills Road and I-287. So, sorry, I-78. What we want to do is we need to put something there to absorb traffic. We have the higher frequencies in these other sites, but they don't get far enough in order to help this particular area, because we have a lot of capacity of the higher frequencies. It just doesn't reach there. So what we're looking to do, and we're up to A6?
Correct.
A6, I've labeled Exhibit A, Mills SC, existing Verizon Wireless 700 and AWS LTE, which is the 4G data coverage. I also labeled A7, which is on the bottom. Exhibit B, Burnt Mills SC, existing and proposed Verizon Wireless 700 and AWS. AWS is the higher frequency, 2100 megahertz. LTE coverage. These were prepared by me on 5/3 of this year.
And these are not in the board's package.
These you don't have. So what this is we've got the same view as we talked about on the aerial. We've got 78, it's a red line going east-west, and we've got 287, a red line going north-south. We have the same sites, Bedminster 2, Bedminster Hills, Bedminster, Lamington, and then the proposed Burnt Mills DAS in the center. The green tint is 700 megahertz coverage. We have 700 megahertz coverage pretty much everywhere. There's a couple little spots over on Somerset Terrace and Country Club Road, a little bit on Burnt Mills Road, because the Lamington site's trying to get off and there's a little hill and some trees in the way. A couple of minor roads to the north going towards Lamington Road. But as a whole, if you made a phone call, it's probably going to work in most cases. Again, the phone calls are going to happen on, most likely, the 850 megahertz, and it could happen on the LTE channels. The blue tint on there is, I've overlaid how much of that area is covered by the higher frequencies. So you see the higher frequency only goes about that, a mile or so, half to quarters of a mile. Like that's where the use started ramping up on A4. So that first 3/4 of a mile or so is all handled by the higher frequency. And then the higher frequency on Bedminster is very small because it's a very low site. It covers, there's a building that's a little bit closer to 287, and that's about it. This covers the general area, the King's, not the King's Market, Fresh Market across the street, and that particular area. So it doesn't quite go as far. 7 on the lower side, that I've put in the coverage from the proposed, from our task note. The dark blue/purple is the higher frequency coverage, and the light green is the 700 megahertz coverage. So you can see from this, it's taking almost all the usage on the 78, from 287, almost halfway to the Landuse site. So right in the hot spot where we're having the issues. And that's the idea. The road is elevated at that point because the Burnt Mills goes over the overpass. So it's a good probably 30 feet off 78, and then plus the 30 or so feet to the top of the antenna. 40 feet to the center line. That has very good view of 78. If you stopped on the bridge and you look both ways, you have a very good view of 78. It's all nice, beautiful line of sight. That's why it gets an amount of coverage radius out of it, even from a little antenna. It's just, again, it's not a macro site. It's not 12 antennas. It's a smaller installation that Verizon's been doing a lot lately. I've seen a handful of them installed at this point. The newer technology that allows this, we bring fiber from Verizon wireline. We'll install fiber for us to this box. Take secondary power, 12240 off the pole, power it up, and we're good. And that's the idea. It can add coverage and capacity to an area.
And is your opinion that this additional node or this new node is required in order to meet the capacity demands in this area?
Yes.
And is Verizon proposing the minimum height necessary to achieve that additional coverage for capacity sake?
Yes, we need up high. There's a couple trees right around there. We don't quite clear the tree on the west side, so we're going to have a little bit of blockage from that. But we do the trees on the east side of the road are a little lower, and we're just getting to that point, so we have a pretty good view in order to provide the coverage. I know there's a quote about mounting other, not quote, a question about mounting other boxes to it. Technically, it may be possible for another carrier to come and put a SIM box and an antenna, obviously not on the top, but they could come down and mount an antenna. There are a set of rules for National Electrical Safety Standard. It's a book about an inch and a half so thick that has all kinds of rules on what you can do with telephone poles. If somebody can work out that they fulfill all those rules and meet all those rules, then the pole probably has it's a pretty good sized pole, the capacity of holding another box and another antenna. You're going to get more than one if they can meet all the rules that are on there. There are height rules. If it's on the street side, it has to be X amount of height. If you put it on the curbs, the land side, then the box can come down a little further. Just like all the boxes you see now from the cable company or Fios or whatever that are on poles. All those rules that apply there apply here. I've personally never seen more than one box on a pole. But in theory, since there's not a lot on this pole, it might be possible for someone, if T-Mobile wanted to do this, to do that. But they have to go through approvals, and they have to comply with the National Electric Safety Code.
And if they weren't approved, then what's their alternative?
They might see if they can set another pole and put their box on another wood pole.
Which if you're granted the right to do it, automatically they would be, I believe.
Well, co-location.
One at a time.
we need to have because the NJ League of Municipalities, this is a big issue right now. And we're talking about the fact that if you do grant a carrier the right to put a box there, then automatically any other carrier is allowed that. And this is something I'm sure our attorney would need to advise us on.
I've actually met with the League of Municipalities with Bergen County, and then thereafter, I know that they sent out a letter to everybody saying that you need to beware what you're permitting, et cetera, like what you're talking about. But I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, he could probably do better. But I know that I've met with them and worked with the concerns that they've
I think
had.
everybody's going to weigh in before I get a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are statutory provisions and new regulations that allow for co-location when the structures are not substantially being changed. But I think the testimony is that that's not really the case with respect to this structure. So it's not likely that that's going to happen here. The whole issue of co-location on existing monopoles is a different issue. And yes, there's if you can fall within certain parameters, you don't even need to come before a board. But I don't think that that's an issue with respect to what we're considering here.
Right, no, the issue I'm talking about is the potential to just have more poles go up in this location.
Okay, well,
That's what I'm
A
talking about.
new pole.
Right, that's what I'm talking
require
about.
approval of the board. Okay, that.
Well, but are you sure? Because isn't that the right of way and it's a public utility?
Well,
You know, this is a very slippery slope. It's just something I'm sure the board needs to investigate and be aware of the potential for many poles going up
well,
without our
existing
approval.
pole here.
I understand that, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, but you're here now with an application.
I'm aware of that, sir, but I am also here to have a discussion with the board and bring up these things. Okay? That's what a board does. We talk about the potential. It may not even be going to happen, but at least we need to be aware of it.
I have a question along the same line as George's question, and I'd like to know this. Does Verizon lease this pole from the county?
It leases the pole from Verizon Utility.
Verizon Utility. And
Verizon Utility has the pole attachment agreement with the county.
Okay.
And Verizon Wireless also has the pole attachment.
Have consent.
Yeah.
It's a it's beyond RF, but there's some kind of consent that has to be obtained because Verizon Wireless is not a CLAC. Verizon is. So Verizon Wireless can't put their equipment in the right-of-way unless they have consent from some entity. Whether it's the county or the town or something like that. But these guys may know
what I'm
that.
getting at is that Verizon Wireless has some sublease or some relationship with Verizon who has a relationship with the county. Is it possible, just like if someone were to sublease an apartment or a building, could Verizon Wireless sublease their lease to another carrier to put something on the same pole without having to get permission again?
Verizon Wireless has to have consent from the owner of the right-of-way.
Right.
Not through Verizon.
But my question is,
Direct.
okay, it doesn't matter. Does anyone know if there's a lease agreement in place that allows for that pole to be subleased to Sprint or someone else and put a utility on that pole?
No, that is not going to happen in this type of installation because this is a utility pole. This is not a monopole, it's not a tower where you traditionally have those co-location issues. At the end of the day, this is a wooden utility pole. It's not something that's designed to accommodate co-location, quite frankly. It's not designed to accommodate...
Exactly, and that's exactly my point. The potential is there for utility poles to go up in this location for Sprint and all these other carriers. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's something we need to be aware of.
But are we hearing that any additional poles would require a separate approval and a separate permit?
And that would be a county.
No, that's a right-of-way from county right-of-way.
No, but what Mike is saying, Mr. Sullivan is saying, is that if there were going to be an additional pole, it would be a separate application and a separate approval required.
Right, and we don't know, because, again, this is a hot issue in League of Municipalities, and they're talking about the fact that once one goes up, you have to allow another carrier to come in. So, I'm just, I don't know.
It becomes a restrained trade thing.
I'm just, exactly, I'm just saying, we need to be aware of this as a board. There's the potential for more poles to go up.
My understanding of the legislation, and we obviously utilize it for co-locations and things of that nature, is that when you are adding additional equipment to an existing site, whether it be a building, whether it be a tower, those are the type of installations that trigger the federal exemption as well as 46.2 under the municipal land use law. When you're going to a location that doesn't have any existing telecommunication equipment there, or if you're going to a location that triggers the need for some type of variance, then those are typically applications that find themselves back before the board for an approval because they don't meet all the criteria for either the federal exemption or the state exemption. So here we have a single-use pole, more or less. I mean, Mr. Pearson said theoretically there's structure, there's capacity in the pole to support whatever else you want to put on it. It's just not, it's not really feasible, but it's not probable. If you had to go to a new location, whether it be a utility pole that's existing or a new utility pole that's going to be set, there's an argument there that that's not a co-location because there is no existing antennas.
Okay, so we're talking about a monopole like your tree at 287.
Yeah.
At 287, any vendor can come along and say, I want to hang my device on your pole, and you can't stop me from doing that. Since this is a singular utility pole, its structural capacity not be for anything more than this single device. And if somebody else came along and wanted to, a similar problem, whether it be T-Mobile, AT&T, whomever, wireless provider, they'd have to go another pole or install another pole in order to create this kind of functionality.
Correct.
They couldn't hang on this pole besides.
They could.
It would be, like I said, it's possible because there's structural, based upon the report, it's only 28% or so stressed. It's just not probable that that would happen because, once again, as Mr. Pierce has testified, you have to put it below the existing Verizon antenna. There's no room up top to put another antenna. It would just be, and they would have to have, this is a very localized need for Verizon. You heard Mr. Pearson testify as to how this is located in an area that our network needs help in. They would have to have the exact same area of need. And quite frankly, there's a number of utility poles. The probability of them going on the same one as us, it would just be very unlikely. And I believe Mr. Pearson testified that he's never seen actually multiple carriers on this type of utility pole.
So if our concern is the proliferation of these devices, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I remember being on this board 15 years ago and somebody drew up a sketch of how we'd have monopoles every quarter of a mile down Lamington Road. So concern is proliferation. Consolidation in the telecommunications industry, there's really 3 or 4 major carriers anymore. Each of those carriers may have their own different gaps in coverage, et cetera, requiring a different solution or a different location to solve their problem. This technology is the same sort of technology that they'd all would be using. So we might see these antennas on top of more poles, but we're going to see singular poles become trees of amplifiers or whatever you would otherwise refer to these things as.
Correct. I believe what you're saying is correct. Is this pole here to accommodate multiple carriers?
As I said, it technically, if it meets guidelines, you might be able to put another box on it. Another antenna is probably not that big a deal. You have to just put it on the side. From that standpoint, there are rules that we have to go through about how high the pole is. It has to be kind of prevailing height of the other poles. We can't go and put a 100-footer here in the right-of-way.
I think we're making this more complicated than we need to make it. We're proposing, this is a wooden utility pole, correct?
Yes.
It's not a lattice tower. It's not a monopole, correct?
It's not a tree pole or anything like that. And they're always set to be prevailing with the height of the poles that are there.
It's not a
Next to it.
structure that's being built with the primary function of accommodating multiple wireless carriers, correct?
Well, I said, it could be set, it has the capacity for two to try to reduce the number of wooden poles that may have to go up in one given area.
But that's not its purpose, correct?
Right,
It's
it's
not
not
a
its-
tower, it's not a monopole, it's a utility pole like any other utility pole in that right of way,
Correct. And then, just with utilities, you know, if this is a JCP&L area, right? So if JCP&L needs to use that pole to get power to something, they can use it, just like they can use any other wooden pole that's around. So it goes by the same pole rules as all the rest of them.
My understanding of this is, if somebody else wanted to come in and try to go on this pole, and I was representing them, I can make an argument that maybe there's some exemptions that would apply because there's already an antenna on this pole. If someone was to come in and go on the pole next to us, then I would think that that would put them in the same position that we are in, and that's why we're before the board. There is no existing antenna facility there. So we went up before this board for approval. So
Okay. Frank, you have something you want to,
The specific pole that you're using here is one in a series of poles that are close to the right-of-way of Route 78. Is there anything magical about this specific pole?
This pole does not have primary power on it, which negates from using it. So if the pole has primary power running across the top, so you have primary, which is high voltage, secondary, which is the home voltage, has a primary on it, then we can't use it.
Gotcha. And
You can't use it.
Cannot.
So when it has a transformer, you can't use it.
Correct.
so if you look up and down the Burnt Mills Road,
Almost all of them have, most of them are on the other side. They're on the west side of the road, west or north side, and they all have primary power going to it. When they get to the one across from us, they have conduits coming down, so the power goes across the bridge, and then it pops up on the other side. There's another restriction is if it has, it was asked there, is there anything that's making the pole wider, like a conduit on the other side? If there's what's called a riser, if there's power riser on the pole that's existing, we can't use it because I don't want crossing power. So that would negate a pole. So there's a lot of different rules, again, with the National Electric Code, and then JCP&L has certain rules, and Verizon has certain rules to keep everything safe, and you can climb the pole and they can do the servicing. So if it has a riser that has power in it, you can't use it. If it just has telephone in it, then it's fine. If it's got primary power across the top, we can't use it.
do you know what requirements are needed to put up an additional pole? I mean, who approves that? The utility authority? Does the county? Do you know that answer?
Outside of my realm, I guess.
Okay,
I have
I'm
an
not asking
idea.
you to guess. I asked
have
if
an
you know.
idea,
Yeah,
but I don't,
okay.
it's not 100%, so I don't want to put stray.
You don't know the answer to that either, or either of us, Frank?
I understand that it's Verizon Utility that sets the pole.
Yes.
But they have to get authority from someone else.
That I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, because as George pointed out, it's his understanding that we might need another pole if somebody else wanted to do it. Yes, that's the question.
I think it has to do with the franchise agreement that Verizon Telephone has with each individual town and right-of-way. So it depends on what your agreement says with Verizon Telephone of what they are allowed to do and what they need to ask for permission for. That's where I think it lies.
Okay. Does that answer your question, George? Or
Well, I don't think anybody could answer it.
Yeah.
You know, this is a new technology, and this is just coming on now.
I understand.
So,
Right. Mm-hmm. Good question.
it's good to, you know, as a board, this is something we may want to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to put some parameters around.
If we can, if we have the right to do that. That's why I'm asking the question I'm asking. You know, who authorizes these poles to be placed?
But here, we're not talking about a new pole.
No, I know, but if it, you know, if they have the authority to just come in and put another pole. Okay. We'll open it up. Frank?
Can I change gears? I have another
Sure,
exhibit.
absolutely.
Who gets one that I wrote the exhibit, this is A8, and it's titled New Jersey Department of Transportation Daily Volume from 11/10/2014 to 11/12/2014 on I-78.
Yeah.
Couple down here.
Yep,
So
good
this
enough,
is
yeah.
just evidence of how much traffic is on I-78 to kind of bolster the need of, is it important or is it a cul-de-sac? At the bottom, there's bottom left, it says collected by DOT. This is available on their website. Next set of what's on the bottom, say road AADT, that's your average daily traffic, 104,973 is average cars per day, including both ways. So that kind of makes the issue significant from a user standpoint. Probably common knowledge for you. You've seen the road and you know how many people, but just for documentation purposes.
And just real quick, because we didn't touch on this, Verizon did do a radio frequency emissions compliance analysis of the proposed facility. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's contained in the April 28, 2017 report.
Correct.
Based on the analysis and conclusions contained in this report, if approved, will the facility operate within FCC limits?
Yes, it will. If you say the FCC limit is 100%, this is approximately 1.5% of the standard. So we meet it by a far margin.
Well, that was the Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have
Go ahead.
quick question, and we may have already covered this, but you're obviously, the purpose of you being here tonight is basically the height that we're over on this pole, and the use as well. But I guess my question is, has Verizon looked into trying to achieve all of these things when keeping it at the existing height? You absolutely have to go higher by that 2,000 or whatever it is in order to achieve that.
The antenna is a kind of an omnidirectional antenna. So it actually looks in all directions. Right? This particular one is actually looking in two directions. So if you put it on the side of the pole, then it has to look through the pole in that direction, which is then going to reduce the coverage. So this type of antenna is designed to be mounted on top.
Right.
As opposed to, we talked about the bank building on 202, 206.
Right.
There are panel antennas that they mount to the side.
Yes.
Right.
But panel antennas, then you need more than one, and it would make the pole wider. This one is about the same diameter as the pole. It just makes it look a little taller. So, an eye beholder, but this is going to match the line of the pole better than slap two panel antennas or three panel antennas on the side.
Board, any more?
Yeah, I do
Yes,
have
go ahead,
another
Lou.
question. I believe this is from Frank Banish's report. Item number 8. For any required variance, the necessary standard of proof requires the applicant to provide testimony to address the positive as well as the negative criteria. And I want to know, since we've kind of got lost in the weeds here, the details, have you actually done that for us this evening? The positive and
That's the
negative?
next witness.
The planner will take care of that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I mean, we believe that Mr. Pearson's testimony demonstrates that this site is particularly well suited for the use, given the localized need around this pole to address the capacity issues. But from a planning perspective, a professional planner will want to be a criteria.
Mr. Farrar, just to make sure I understand it, it's both coverage and capacity, is that correct?
It's not adding,
Because I've heard coverage at times, I've heard capacity at times.
it's primarily a capacity, and it's for the 700 megahertz, and then it's adding additional coverage at the higher 21 megahertz. So then we have even more capacity there to handle things in the future. So it's technically it's both, because capacity at one frequency band that we have an FCC license for, and then it's increasing coverage for other frequency band that we have a license for.
Okay, I'll open it up to the public if they have any questions. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thanks.
You have another witness?
Madam Chair, that brings us to our final witness.
Okay.
Tia Nadar, who's our professional planner.
Mm-hmm.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
Would you state your name and spell it, please?
Svia Adar, spelled Tsvia, last name Adar. I'm a senior planner with Dewberry, located at 600 Parsippany Road in Parsippany.
And you're a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, is that correct?
Correct.
And have you testified for land use boards in the state of New Jersey previously?
Yes.
And have you-
Including this board. It has been a long time ago.
Yes.
so I couldn't-
The board, chief steps on the board.
Okay.
All right, so we have a number of photo boards that we're going to show tonight, correct?
Yes.
And all of these, we'll mark these separately, but these photos are the same as the ones that are.
We want to move it.
package, correct?
Let me move it.
They are identical to the photo simulations.
I'm going to need you to hold the microphone because your voice is too low.
Can you hear better?
Much better.
Okay.
We need to move the board too. The board is having trouble seeing that where it's scheduled. If you can bring it up this way. I think the public might be able to see it better too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If we move it back a little. And just a little bit this way. Go, keep going, further back, no. That's, I think,
Does that work?
yes.
Delivering furniture.
Okay, I just started saying that they are identical to what you have, just put them on a larger boards. And also, I put in the photo sims, I put the existing and proposed side by side.
Right.
And that's the only difference.
So A1 is the Google aerial that we marked for identification earlier. This aerial is in your packet and was prepared by you under your supervision, is that correct?
Yes.
And you have additional simulations.
Yeah. I conducted a site visit. I took the photos and instructed the technician to prepare the photo simulations.
What he's showing now.
What is it?
Could you identify what you marked as A9?
Yeah. Let me first. Could you please identify the
Yes.
exhibit marked as A9?
Yes. And is the first photo simulations that you have in your package, looking from southwest of the pole. And on the left side, you have the existing photo that I took, and on the right side, the photo simulations with the antennas and equipment superimposed on it.
And then the exhibit marked as A10.
A10 is another view from the northeast towards the pole, and again, the left side is the existing, and the right side is the proposed with the antennas and equipment.
Looking northeast.
So A1, A9, A10 were all prepared by you under your supervision, correct?
Yes.
And you believe these photo simulations actually depict the existing conditions at the site?
Yes, they've,
As well as the proposed
Yeah.
installation?
yes, they've done based on the engineering plans and with the correct heights, and definitely reflects the way that it's going to look like.
Okay.
I'd like also to state for the record that in addition to the site visit, I reviewed all the application documents. I also reviewed your ordinance and master plans and your officials' reports, and based on that, I prepared my testimony. Can you hear me well now? I need to raise my voice a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold that mic close.
Just hold it a little closer.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Dar, have you performed a planning analysis of the use variance and height variance relief that the applicant is requesting?
Yes.
And could you please share that with the board and public?
Sure. As indicated, the site is located within the R10 rural residential zone, where it's permitted when it is on a site, on property that either owned or otherwise controlled by the township. In this case, we're on a property that belongs to the county, and that's the reason why a use variance is needed. Also, the height of the antenna exceed the permitted height in the R10 zone, which is 35 feet. The excess height is more than 10%, which kicks us to a V6 variance rather than a bulk variance. And so that's the other variance that we are requesting. And there are also some bulk variances related to setbacks. There are existing, obviously we're not intensifying it or changing it. The pole currently is located closer than the required setbacks. However, as you know, it's a right-of-way and very unique type of property, so it's a question whether, you can
I
identify with the same.
clarification purposes, when you talk about a setback, you're referring to the building setbacks in the R10 zone?
Yes.
We don't apply to this pole.
Right.
So I don't think we have any
So we don't.
setback variances for the pole.
Okay,
So that-
in any case, they are subsumed normally in the review of the D1, and they don't need justifications. The statutory criteria for the D1 variances as related to wireless telecommunication facilities has been established by court based on the SICA case, which is typically used for inherently beneficial uses. In SMART, SMR versus Fairlawn, the court ruled three important things. One is that the particular suitability portion of the positive criteria is presumptively satisfied for wireless facilities. It also, the court applied the four-part balancing test established in SICA, which I will get to it, and also determined that the enhanced quality of proof that normally required in the Medici cases, according to the Medici case for other type of variances, does not apply for wireless. D6 height justification is similar to the D1, just with the emphasis on the height, and that's why I'm going to combine the justification for both at the same time. Just a few points that I would like to make with regard to the sites, unique site that we're talking about. Again, as you heard, it's a very small scale site, unlike, the full-size facilities that you have 12 antennas or tower. It's a very unique and new technology, which is very small. What's important also to emphasize that the location and the height of those type of facilities is important. It has to be fairly centered in the service area that need to be covered, and the height has to be fairly specific, because if you go too high, you may end up with too much coverage, which affect the operation of the antenna. If it goes too low, and it will, because the antenna is low powered, it will be affected by any obstacles of vegetation or other structures. So it's really important in this case that when we get to the site suitability to understand that this is really has to be very particular location in order to achieve what the applicants need. And also, it's important to remember that most of the municipal ordinance, including this town, is really oriented more to large sites, the full-size scale of sites, and not to this type of very small scale. So when you are concerned about visibility and other impacts, this type of facility really doesn't have all these adverse effects typical to other sites. Okay, so I'm going to start with the positive criteria. Again, the special reasons, as indicated, is presumptively satisfied for wireless cases, and obviously in this case it's going to improve the capacity and the coverage for the benefit of the general public. As to the particular suitability, as you heard from the RF engineer, it meets the applicant's needs for the coverage and capacity gap, or to improve it. It is located in the proximate to Highway 78 and Burns Mill Road, where the traffic is very high and it's specifically needed there. From technical standpoint, I just indicated that it's central and the right height of the pole make the site specifically suitable for this need, for this particular need. It also, because there is an existing utility pole, it avoids the need for additional towers, which is one of the purposes of your ordinance. And because of the same reasons, alternative sites really, even though were explored, there is really nothing around that area that could serve better or that would be suitable for this purpose. Going to the negative criteria, for all variances must satisfy two requirements. One is that the grant of the use variance will not cause substantial detriment to the public good. The site is not going to have any really adverse effect, and I'll go into that a little bit more. Neither visibility or environmentally or any other nuisance like noise or glare or anything else. And so it definitely will not cause substantial detriment to the public good. The second part, or the second criteria that need to be covered, is that the use will not cause substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance. Again, because of the scale of the site, and I went through all the goals, all the purposes of the wireless ordinance, and basically this site is consistent with all these purposes, all the applicable ones. There are a few that are related specifically to towers, and they are not applicable. But basically, it's the purpose of the ordinance is to protect the historic character and the scenic character of the town, to protect residential and areas, and to locate it in areas with minimal effect on surrounding properties. Also to encourage the ability of the providers of telecommunication services to provide such services to the community quickly, effectively, and efficiently. So that really is consistent with the purposes of the ordinance, and therefore it meets this criteria. It doesn't. It's not going to result in any impairment to the intent and purpose of the ordinance, and neither to the master plan. I went through that as well. The master plan doesn't really have any specific requirements related to wireless, but generally speaking, it has similar purposes of protecting residential property and the character of the town, and it is consistent with master plan as well. I'm going to go over very quickly through the four-part balancing test required based on the court ruling and based on the Sika case. The first one is to identify the public interest at stake. I think it was covered also by our RF engineer. The second one is to identify the detrimental effect that will ensue from the grant of the variance. The biggest concern normally is visibility. I think that you have seen and the visual impact. You've seen from the photo simulations how little, how minimal visibility and minimal impact these antennas and equipment is going to cause. The antenna itself really look mostly like a canister, like many of the transformers that you see on utility poles. It blends with the pole itself. It's going to be painted the same color. The equipment are not, cabinets that you normally have on the side, not equipment, structure. They're basically attached to the post itself. When you look at the surrounding areas, it's, blends completely with other poles that are on the right of way. It's not going to be noticeable at all, definitely not from any residential areas. And no other impacts, are expected from this small facility. The third part of the seeker case is to consider whether the imposition of reasonable conditions will mitigate the identified detrimental effect. I think we're already covering that by the painting the antennas and by design of the antennas. I don't feel that it's necessary for additional mitigation measures, but the board has the right to impose any related conditions if you feel necessary. And the last one is really to weigh the positive and negative criteria and determine whether, on balance, the grant of the variance would cause substantial detriment to the public good. I think it's very clear in this case the benefit of putting the facility versus basically no adverse effect. So I think that it's quite safe to say that the benefit to the public will clearly outweigh any detriment. In summary, the proposed application satisfied the applicable statutory criteria for the D1 use variance and the D6 height variance. The proposed antenna and ancillary equipment constitute a minimal change to the existing conditions and will result in no adverse visual effect or any other impacts. The facility will result in no substantial detriment to the public good and no substantial impairment to the township zone plan or zoning ordinance. The benefit of the grant of the requested variance will clearly and substantially outweigh any detriment, and in my professional opinion, it should warrant approval.
And your opinion is also based upon the photo simulation study that was done, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I thought I mentioned.
Okay, the board-
Any questions?
The board?
Photosim?
Any questions for this witness? Frank, do you have anything further? Frank, anything further?
We've paid full attention to this application as it comes to us as a use variance and a height variance. Mike just mentioned something to me which I really have to repeat. This is about as minimal an impact kind of an application like this as you can get, and it seems to be kind of a maximum benefit for minimum visual impact. They're going to paint it. I mean, it seems when you take the diameter of the pole and you just kind of extend it up a little tiny bit, I don't know how better you can do it than that. So I think I'm satisfied that the proofs have been met.
Good. I'll open up to the public. Any questions? Seeing none. You have any further things you'd like to say?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would like to know if we can get Mr. Pearson up one more time.
Of course.
A question for him.
Sure. You still...
Still here.
Ms. Pearson, you showed your coverage graphics there. Some of the streets like Somerset Terrace and a few other streets, Country Club Road and other, in Bedminster had not great coverage or no coverage at all. Will it improve the coverage for some of those township residential
It will not.
customers?
On A7,
Yeah, the white area?
yeah, the one area, it's not touching the new green. It's, the propagation model is saying that there's whatever trees and development in this area. And
That's a
it's-
low spot too, no?
So there's low-lying areas.
That's a low spot.
One at a time, please, one at a time.
So, in effect, we get a tiny bit of benefit for the residents that in those streets from this pole.
It's maybe, but the Exhibit A7 is not showing any benefit on the actual streets because the light green stops right before that.
Okay, I just wanted to establish, what we're talking about here is the benefit to travelers on 78 for the most part, but I wanted to see what the effect was for Bedminster residents.
The effect for Bedminster residents is now the Bedminster site and the Lamington site aren't blocking. So everybody that operates off the Lamington site at 700 megahertz, which is a significant portion of the semi-rural roads and other parts of Burnt Mills, is now going to work better because it doesn't have the load of Route 78 on it. And the same thing for the Bedminster site. So when we reduce the load off of Bedminster and Lamington, everybody that's on Bedminster will work better and have better service.
Free up bandwidth, you're saying?
Yes.
Pretty much, okay.
It lightens the load and the other two.
So now everybody in these other areas that are being served by Bedminster and served by Lamington, even after this goes on, will have better service.
Would that include better in-building coverage or not necessarily?
Well, it allows more 700 megahertz to be available to those other people. And 700, when you go into a building, a lot of times 700 is the only signal that's going to get inside. So it frees that up and capacity up so people above Bedminster can take advantage of that, as opposed to giving all that capacity to the pasture throughs on 78.
Thank you.
And since you came back, I just have one quick question because you're an expert in this. Could you just briefly talk about the difference from the RF impact if I'm talking on my phone as opposed to if I'm standing below your new tower there, assuming it would go up, or your new device? How much RF I'm getting in my body, radio frequency?
Versus using a phone?
Yeah. Or the Wi-Fi network in my house, like the difference in...
You could, when you get a phone, it has a pamphlet that nobody reads and throws out. And in there it tells you what that phone or that device meets. It has to meet a certain standard. And the standard that lists in there is 100%. Like 4 kilograms per, 4 watts per kilogram, I think it says, or 2 watts per kilogram is the value of watts per mass of body mass. That is the limit for something that's going to be close to you. So that's what it's stating is 100%. So if your pamphlet says, so I think the maximum is 2 watts. The pamphlet says you're doing 1 watt, that means you're at 50% of the standard. We're 1%. You're standing underneath this.
So in other words, if I'm talking on my phone and it's up here, I'm 99 times getting 99 times more RF than standing below your...
If you're at 50% using the phone, then you could be, it could be 1.5 times what gets you 50.
And this is a relatively
40,
new
30.
technology, these low power antennas and nodes? In some form or another, usually they've been just used in buildings. Okay.
Mostly, so
Very local.
if you go into the Commons Mall, they're in there.
Okay.
But they're in there, it's even a lower power. So this is kind of in between, so they can actually cover enough outdoors. So, based upon the infrastructure, fiber being available more in the streets, because it's all fed on dark fiber.
Bandwidth.
So the bandwidth of the infrastructure has now enabled us to be able to start doing something like this. So
very cool.
We can put a few of these up in places and fill holes or fill capacity gaps, whereas before...
It's only going to get better too, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know if it's better or worse, but it's going to get different.
Saturation.
Yes.
Is this the better solution to filling those capacity gaps that you're talking about than building higher poles going forward?
Depends on who you ask.
Who has to live by the I mean, better in terms of efficiency, because when we talk about proliferation of, do I want to see one of these things every half mile as I drive down the road, or do I want to see more monopoles with these obtrusive and ugly looking trees or what have you?
Do you want to see more of these, or do you want to see less of towers? A tower,
That's what this technology allows.
more, right, smaller, less bulk. One cabinet that's 4 by whatever, as opposed to a shelter or a whole cabinet in a compound of 10 by whatever. And so it's scalable. This is essentially almost like one of the antennas, maybe 2, off of the Lamington Tower. That it provides the same functionality as one of those antennas can.
Wonderful.
And, we're splitting that up to go 2 directions, but it has the same capacity as one of those antennas that's on the big tower. So they do have a limitation of what they can do. The height isn't very high, so it gets caught in the clutter. Sometimes they go 500 feet, sometimes they go 2,000 feet. Depends on what they can see. So you right places where you can't build a tower. It seems to be the right way. Sometimes we can get service out to people faster this way. If you have a right-of-way agreement and everything else, then you could be, and go through pretty quickly, as opposed to doing an application off of Route 202 for a couple of years and zoning 2 different sites and then going for an appeal and then finally building it about 5 or 6 years later. You'll be able to get this done in a few months instead.
Got it.
So,
Okay. Any specific questions for this witness? Okay, I think we're ready.
Yeah, I know, Mr. Farrar, you have no further witnesses.
No further witnesses,
And I
no
know
further
we opened up
direct.
for questions to members of the public, but there should be an opportunity if anybody has a comment or testimony to be provided.
Okay, we'll open it up. Seeing none, I think we're
Mr. Farrar, you have anything to
ready
close with?
to...
I mean, a couple sentences, Madam Chair,
Sure,
because you've
go
heard a
ahead.
lot of information now in such a little installation. I mean, we honestly believe that this is as good as it gets when it comes to telecommunication installations. As Mr. Pearson has demonstrated, although these sites are small and they cover a little area, they have effects which cover a larger area when they offload the sectors from these larger sites that are having the capacity issues. So although we are use variance here, we are a height variance, although a very minor height variance. It's only it's less than 3 feet above the existing structure. We really feel that the benefits here are clear and convincing, and in all practical sense, we doubt that anyone would even notice that this antenna facility was on this pole if they were driving by in this area. So we believe there's benefits to be had by granting the variance relief, and really it's going to be unnoticeable to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Yes, we're ready for a resolution?
We are.
I think we are.
I'm just going to make a recommendation. If there's a motion to approve, and this is an application for a D1 use variance as well as a D6 height variance and site plan approval, that we would incorporate the recommendations in Mr. Ferriero's memo of June 5, specifically comments 2, 4, and 6. And the applicant has also stipulated that the new structure will be painted to match the pole, so I think that should also be a condition.
I agree.
So it'd be appropriate for a motion by a member of the board.
We need a motion?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Christie? Aye. Mr. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Beatty?
Aye.
Mr. Zucker?
Aye.
Mr. Travelini?
Aye.
And Ms. Beckdahl?
Aye.
Thank you
Congratulations.
very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we just have a little bit of business to settle here. Trina, we have any scheduling? What do we have no meeting the first Thursday in July. All have a vacation. We have a vacation day. But on the 13th, we have scheduled.
Yes, we have Great Oak Farm as well as Landuse Road.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
That's it. Good night, guys, and have a good vacation.
All right.